Hi, I'm really sorry that I can't be with you in Stevenage this morning, but I'm Tim Woodhouse. I am the Suicide Prevention Programme Manager in Kent County Council, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the research that I've done between the links between domestic abuse and suicide. So I've been in this position since 2014, but over the last few years I've also been undertaking quite specific research into the topic, including a Churchill Fellowship, which allowed me to go to Iceland, Slovenia and the United States to research this issue. And I've published a report earlier this year called 66 Ways to Reduce Domestic Abuse Related Suicides. So if you want to see that, please just Google Tim Woodhouse and Churchill Fellowship and you'll see the full 66 recommendations. Unfortunately, I don't have time this morning to go through all 66, but I am going to tell you a little bit about my research and some of the main findings. Obviously, please look after yourselves. This is a depressing and distressing topic, so please do what you need to do. We know that 33% of our suspected suicides in Kent and Medway have been impacted by domestic abuse. That's nearly 300 over the last 6 years. If you extrapolate that 33% on a national basis, it equates to about 1,800 suspected suicides every single year across England, which is a huge number. It's a huge proportion, but I absolutely guarantee, I don't know why I've put on the screen very likely to be, it's a guarantee that that is an underestimate, given that we know domestic abuse is so underreported. We know that there are definitely male and female victims of domestic abuse who are dying by suicide. We also know that there are many male perpetrators and a tiny number of female perpetrators who are dying by suicide. We also know that there's this group in the middle who are known as both victims and perpetrators to the police. This is a group that we really want to explore more. There's so many different nuances going on here that we just don't really understand at the moment. But I'm lucky enough to just receive funding to be able to do a PhD over the next few years to look into that group more. In addition to the number crunching, we've also, I should actually say on this slide that, we want to compare our quantitative data with other areas, but not many other parts of the country count in the same way that we do. Some areas are counting, but they're not publishing. So please, if you know of any kind of numbers out there similar that count in a similar way, please let me know. We also know that in Australia, they've come up with a figure of 25% of their suspected suicides have been impacted by DA. That's not quite 33%, but it's a much bigger sample size over a much bigger time frame. And so actually, although it's not quite 33% that we're seeing in Kent, it's still a big number. It's in the same ballpark, and it does mean that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people dying every single year. I also wanted to highlight the National Police Chiefs Council that you can see on the screen. They've done a couple of reports where they have found that there are more suspected victim suicides following DA than there are intimate partner homicides. If you put that another way, the person most likely to kill a victim of domestic abuse is themselves. That is a horrific statement, and I think should be one that makes all of us, whatever our role in this is, sit up and take notice, because I simply don't think that we give it enough attention at the moment. This is where I was going to say that in addition to the number crunching, we've also done some qualitative interviews with survivors who have attempted to take their own life. We asked them a simple question: why did you want to die? And the first response was actually from people who didn't want to die, who don't want to die, but they are just so convinced they're going to be murdered by their perpetrator that actually controlling the manner of their death was preferable.
I knew that he was going to kill me, so it wasn't a matter of choosing to die, just who was going to do it.
And that's obviously a horrific position to be in, but that's not the only cohort.
I thought I was worthless, like I didn't deserve to be alive, and that everything they said was true. I was horrible, and that the only way out was for me to die.
So this cohort of people are not convinced they're going to be murdered, but they just believe all the lies that their perpetrator tells them about their family hating them, the friends not wanting to see them, and that the world would be a better place without them. And that's obviously another horrific position to be in. But not the only cohort.
You go into survival mode. You're hyper vigilant. It's exhausting and tiring. I was sick of fighting. I was sick of surviving. I knew when I woke up that day I would attempt suicide.
So this cohort, they're not convinced they're going to be murdered. They're not believing the lies that they're being told, but they just simply cannot find another way of making the abuse stop. They may have reached out for support from the police, from social services, from other domestic abuse charities, but simply nothing works. Nothing is preventing that perpetrator from abusing them.
I felt broken. I felt so many emotions: shame, hurt, fear, grief. I felt like damaged goods. I couldn't sleep at night. I was having flashbacks, and he was on Tinder finding the next victim.
And this is a group that we weren't really expecting when we were doing the work. Their suicide attempts are coming many months, sometimes even years after the abuse is finished, and the perpetrator may be in prison, they may be dead themselves, they may have, in this case, moved on to other relationships. But the long-term impact of the trauma is so great on the victim, the survivor, that they end up not being able to recover and actually end up trying to take their own lives many months after the abuse has stopped.
The way she abused me was very different to the way abuse is traditionally depicted. It wasn't violent, but if you can drive someone insane to the point they want to take their own life, then that's just as damaging.
And this obviously highlights that it's not just female victims who are dying by suicide. We know that male victims are, despite being far smaller numbers, they are also dying by suicide after being a victim of domestic abuse. So what can we do about it? Well, this is the front cover of my report. The link's on the screen, but also just Google Tim Woodhouse and Churchill Fellowship and you'll find it. I've grouped my 10 different, I've grouped the 66 recommendations into 10 different groups that you can see on screen. We need to do much better at supporting young people. We need to support women and girls better. We need to support men and boys better. We need to do more about perpetrators. We need to do more about this group in the middle who are known as both victims and perpetrators, etc., etc. But if I can leave you with just a few of the recommendations from the report, and I guess the biggest two are that hopefully you could put into practice tomorrow, is when you're with a victim of domestic abuse, please just ask them, are they contemplating suicide? Because if you don't know the answer to that question, then you cannot create an effective safety plan, which leads on to the second recommendation, which is that every single safety plan that you produce from now on should include a section on how to keep victims safe from suicide, alongside all of those other sections that are there about keeping them safe from the perpetrator. Some of the other recommendations: mental health clinicians should be embedded in every DA service and vice versa. We need to get better at real-time suicide surveillance across the country. We need specialist bereavement support for families after domestic abuse-related suicides. It's a very different kind of bereavement, and it's so nuanced and complex that we need specialist support. I'll leave you to read the rest on the screen, or you can check out my report by Googling my name and the Churchill Fellowship. I hope you have a lovely and interesting day in Stevenage. And again, once again, very sorry that I couldn't be with you today.